A funeral director began losing consciousness every day as the sun went down. This is what happened to her heart. Presenting to the emergency department, 42-year-old LV reported 3 episodes of syncope while finishing her evening embalming shifts. She described a sudden sensation of her heart skipping beats, followed by total darkness. Despite a history of seasonal allergies, her vitals were stable, but her electrocardiogram revealed a dangerous rhythm. The rhythm suggested her occupational environment was literally fixing her tissues in place. Formaldehyde is a cross-linking agent that preserves tissue by binding proteins, but when inhaled in a poorly ventilated cellar, it disrupts the electrical conductivity of cardiac myocytes. At Anatomy of a Mistake, we analyze how common habits collide with hidden hazards. In LV's case, her nightly routine of taking over-the-counter allergy medication to combat dust in the funeral home created a perfect storm for a cardiac event. LV spent her afternoons in an embalming suite where the air was thick with pungent vapors. As the sunset light filtered through the high, narrow windows, she noticed her eyes stinging and a persistent dry cough. Believing she was suffering from seasonal allergies, she began self-medicating with 50 milligrams of diphenhydramine every afternoon. Diphenhydramine is a first-generation antihistamine that crosses the blood-brain barrier. While it blocks the receptors responsible for her sneezing, it also inhibits potassium channels in the heart, specifically the ICAR current, prolonging the time it takes for the heart to reset after each beat. It is designed to block H1 receptors and stop the inflammatory cascade. By silencing her body's natural alarm system, LV was unknowingly walking into a toxic trap. While finishing a late shift preparation, she felt a sudden, violent thud against her ribs. Her vision tunneled into a dark pinprick, and she lost consciousness, falling onto the hard tile floor. To understand why LV's heart was failing, we must look at the chemistry of the air she was breathing. As a funeral director, she was frequently exposed to high concentrations of formaldehyde, a colorless, pungent gas used as a preservative. In the small, poorly ventilated prep room, the concentration likely hovered near 2 parts per million. That is like a single drop of ink in a large kitchen sink, yet it is enough to cause severe sensory irritation. Formaldehyde is a fixative, meaning it works by cross-linking proteins. Biologically, this process is essentially pickling tissues while the person is still alive. When LV inhaled these vapors, the gas reacted instantly with the moist linings of her airway, a portal of entry effect that led to chronic inflammation. While the antihistamine stopped her sneezing, it also crossed the blood-brain barrier. This caused significant sedation and masked the neurological warning signs of her toxic environment. The clinical investigation shifted from her lungs to the electrical conduction of her heart. While the formaldehyde was pickling her respiratory proteins, its systemic metabolism was creating a volatile threat. Once absorbed into the bloodstream, formaldehyde is rapidly converted by the enzyme alcohol dehydrogenase into formic acid. This acid began to accumulate, causing a drop in her blood pH, a condition known as metabolic acidosis. Metabolic acidosis developed as her body failed to clear the chemical byproducts of formaldehyde metabolism. As her blood pH dropped below 7.35, the acidic environment increased the concentration of free ionized calcium, further destabilizing her heart's electrical membrane. As the acidity rose, it began to interfere with the delicate mineral balance required for a steady heartbeat. Specifically, the excess hydrogen ions began to compete with potassium and calcium. This is where her use of diphenhydramine became a silent catalyst. This antihistamine is known to inhibit the delayed rectifier potassium channels in the heart. If these channels are blocked, the heart takes longer to reset its electrical charge after every beat. This delay is visible on an EKG as a prolonged QT interval. By combining the acid-driven electrolyte shift with the medication's channel-blocking effects, LV had inadvertently created the perfect environment for Torsade de Pointes. This French term, meaning twisting of the points, describes a lethal, spiral-shaped heart rhythm that stops blood from reaching the brain. As LV lay on the emergency department stretcher, her heart monitor began to chirp a rhythmic, warning gallop. The medical team observed a pattern of premature ventricular contractions. Premature ventricular contractions began to dominate her EKG. These are early, extra heartbeats originating in the lower chambers that occur when an ectopic focus fires before the normal sinus node, leading to a sensation of a thumping or skipped beat. They signaled that her cardiac muscle was becoming electrically irritable. The formic acid in her blood was acting as a molecular crowbar prying open the gates of her cellular stability. In a healthy heart, electrical signals flow like a coordinated wave. But in LV's case, The formaldehyde-derived acid had created a state of hyperkalemia. Hyperkalemia, or elevated blood potassium, was the final trigger. Normally, potassium stays inside the cells, but the combination of cellular damage from chemical exposure and acidemia forced potassium into the extracellular space, slowing her heart rate until it nearly stopped. This excess potassium, unable to enter the cells properly due to the shifted pH, began to scramble the heart's internal wiring. If the acidity continued to rise, then the electrical reset period of her heart would stretch until it snapped. Clinicians realized that the antihistamine she took to suppress her cough was now preventing her heart from recovering between beats. This synergy created a window of vulnerability so wide that a single stray electrical pulse could send her into a fatal spin. To stabilize LV, the medical team initiated an aggressive intravenous protocol of sodium bicarbonate. By flooding her system with alkaline ions, they aimed to pull her blood pH back from the brink of a sour state. As the bicarbonate neutralized the formic acid, the electrical irritability in her heart began to subside. The premature contractions slowed, and the terrifying twisting rhythm of Torsade de Pointes finally smoothed into a steady sinus rhythm. This case highlights the danger of cumulative toxicology. The formaldehyde exposure alone was significant, but when paired with a daily antihistamine that delayed cardiac repolarization, the two substances reached a tipping point that her heart could no longer compensate for. Formaldehyde is endogenous, meaning the body produces it naturally in tiny amounts. But LV was inhaling concentrations nearly 3 times the legal safety limit for 8 hours a day. This is equivalent to her liver processing the chemical load of a high-proof alcoholic beverage every single hour of her shift. LV eventually recovered, but she required an extensive overhaul of her workplace ventilation.